After a strong start to the Trump presidency, things have begun to unravel, and support for Donald Trump is failing. What actually is happening here? That's what we want to talk about today on Crisis Point. Hello, I'm Eric Sanders, your host, editor-in-chief of Crisis Magazine. As always, I want you to smash that like button. I want you to subscribe to the channel. I don't want you to hit the notify bell. Now, somebody did say, if you hit the notify bell, but then you turn off notifications on your phone, then your phone won't tell you what to do, but it will still help the algorithm. I don't know if that's true. I just don't want your phone telling you what to do. So don't do anything that I don't want a notification come on your phone saying Eric Sammons is live or Crisis Point live or whatever like that, because I just think that's creepy. And so don't do that, but definitely smash the like button and subscribe to the channel. So also, I want to mention, I am very happy about my new book, Shard of Eden. You can go to shardofeden.com to find out about it. It's a science fiction novel. It is now live. You can buy it at Amazon or on my website. Go to shardofeden.com and have the links to that. But I'm really excited because I sold out my first shipment that I got of signed copies. People ordered directly from me. And that is, by the way, how I get the most money for those who are interested in that. I don't mind if you buy it at Amazon, but I do make more money with each sale directly through my website. But like I sold out and I had to buy another shipment of books. And in fact, I just bought my third shipment because I was starting to dwindle on the second one, the second case of books. So I'm just very happy for everybody who's already purchased it. Reviewed on Amazon if you have. But if you haven't got it yet, go to shardofeden.com to do that. Okay, so let's get into this, though. So Donald Trump has always been one of the most frustrating and dynamic politicians there are because he's just as everywhere. He's all over the map. And so I want to talk about him today. So last month I did a podcast called Pope Leo Disappoints. And that was about my disappointment, obviously, in Pope Leo. Now, today it's President Trump disappoints. So you can see I'm a disappointed person. That's what my wife said when I told her what today's podcast was on. And it's true that I'm not a person who gets really attached to a public figure in like a cultish way and just is like, I will defend that person to the death no matter what. There are certain public figures I like a lot and I will defend more than others. So like a Bishop Strickland, today's a 2-year anniversary of him getting ousted from his diocese. I defend him very strongly. Bishop Athanasius Schneider, a Ron Paul, somebody like that. But somebody like Pope Leo, I hope for the best. I pray for him, and I support him when he does good things. But I am disappointed in some of the things he's done. The same is true of Donald Trump. That I'm not going to slavishly. I'm not a Trumpster, a cult-like supporter of Donald Trump. Never have been. In fact, that's my history with Donald Trump is kind of uneven. I'll be the first to admit that. When Donald Trump was first, running for president back in 2016, I did not support him. I actually stated that I would never vote for Donald Trump before Never Trump became a thing. When Never Trump became a thing, that was like a month or two after. I remember this very clearly. A month or two after I had publicly said I would never vote for him. However, my reasons for not supporting him in 2016 were very different than the reasons given by a lot of the Never Trumpers. In fact, it was kind of the opposite in some ways. I was very supportive of Donald Trump's foreign policy, his stated foreign policy at the time, of non-interventionalism, not really getting in these wars. Whereas a lot of the Never Trumpers, the reason they didn't like Trump is because because he didn't want to get into these wars. That's what he said. He didn't want to get involved in these foreign conflicts. I didn't vote for him because I just didn't trust him. I thought he would govern as a New York limousine liberal, and he would just be a disaster. Ultimately, I did not have Trump derangement syndrome, though. And so when he started being not bad in his first term, I was like, okay, he's not what I thought he was. I'm willing to change my mind. I'm willing to look at the evidence and decide otherwise. And I personally think his first administration, the Trump 1.0, was really just a pretty standard Republican presidency. Yes, he did very well with his picks for Supreme Court, although that Supreme Court just rejected looking at the same-sex marriage ruling just this week. So it's not like they're all stars, but they're much better than a lot of picks made by other presidents, including Republican presidents. But the point is that I was like, okay, he's a pretty standard fare Republican in how he actually governs. I mean, he appointed, most of his appointments were standard, Republican picks for all his cabinet positions, things like that. And the way he did things were pretty normal. For all the craziness of people who hated him, it was pretty standard, frankly. And then, so in 2020, I voted for him, but I wasn't that enthusiastic about it. And mostly because of COVID. I thought he was awful on COVID. But it's like with Biden and with things they were going, I was like, this could really be a disaster if Biden wins, especially during, the COVID and the George Floyd riots and stuff like that. I said, this could get really bad. And it did get really bad. Biden did win, or win, however you want to look at it. And, it was pretty bad under Biden. No question about that. And so in 2024, though, I was an enthusiastic supporter of Donald Trump because I really felt like there was a difference between 2024 Trump and 2016 Trump. 2024 Trump had nearly been assassinated, the lawfare state had tried to crush him at every opportunity and throw him in jail. He had been basically just, attacked like no politician in American history, I would say. And so I was like, okay, he's going to be different. So I didn't like everything about him even then. Like, the support of IVF obviously is evil. I'm not like trying to defend that. But I'm just saying that I really thought, like, compared to the presidents in my lifetime, I was like, okay, this time it's going to be different. I really did think that. And for the first few months of the Trump presidency, 2020, starting in January 2025, it was different. I really thought the first couple months of this Trump presidency, from about January 2025 to about April-ish 2025, were some of the best months for a president in my lifetime. I mean, I cannot think of a better time for a president during this. I mean, it was exactly what we voted for. The DOJ cuts, the DOJ going into these different government departments and saying, okay, we got to get rid of this. We got to shut this down. I mean, it was really doing something there. Maha getting off the ground, like getting RFK as the Health and Human Services. And we're really going to look at vaccines. We're going to look at the root causes of obesity, the root causes of diabetes, and all these different things. We're going to stop having, a bunch of fat kids who are sick, all chronically sick at the age of 12. We had Kash Patel being appointed to director of FBI, Pam Bondi, which wasn't as good as Matt Gaetz, but I was like, okay, still we got somebody, attorney general. They're going to start draining the swamp. I mean, we had the pardons. I mean, I loved how he pardoned Ross Ulbricht and others. And it was so good. And I really was like, okay, I don't know if I can take this much winning, as President Trump himself would say. But I was like, I'm going to, so I was very excited. But then something happened. Something happened. In fact, I posted on X yesterday about this. And it was like, and I didn't realize, I kind of just put this out there. I mean, most people think I think through all my X posts, but I don't really. This is something I've been thinking for a while. And I threw it out there, and I was shocked by how much response I got. I mean, over 7,000 likes, over almost 375,000 views. And I said, I'm convinced something happened in the Trump administration around April, May. Before that, things were going great. DOJ was slashing government. ICE was deporting illegals. Maha was heating up. Then everything fell apart. The big, beautiful spending bill, a focus on Israel, attacking Thomas Massie, flailing on domestic issues. It's like Trump 2.0 transferred into Trump 1.0 overnight. What happened? And this tweet by my standards went pretty viral. And I realized, okay, I'm not the only one who noticed this. This is just something I had noticed, and I was like, what is going on here? I mean, I noticed other people were starting to sour on Donald Trump, his supporters starting to sour on stuff, but I feel like it was almost like an overnight switch. And I legitimately asked him what happened. And I didn't get any answer that was like overwhelming that everybody's like, yeah, this is what happened, Eric. Don't you realize this is what happened? I had a few suggestions, which I'll talk about here in a minute. But I didn't have anything. No, there was nothing where all of a sudden everybody's like, no, Eric, come on. This is what happened. Don't you remember? It just all of a sudden, Trump shifted and he went in a different direction, a direction that isn't what we voted him for. I mean, I know the first major thing that we noticed, at least that I noticed, was the big, beautiful spending bill. Of course, they call it the big, beautiful bill, which was just more of the same as far as spending bills. I mean, it's like, and we were told, oh, you need to shut up about this because in September, that's what we need to pass this. So in September, that's when really things are going to happen. That's when we'll cut the spending. Well, it's now November. Guess what happened in September? Diddly squat happened in September. Nothing happened. So all the like, just hold on. That's what we're told. That's what conservatives told all the time by Republicans. Oh, we have to pass this because just it's the only thing we can get through. But just wait, and then we'll do X. Well, X never happens, and that's what happened here again. And we passed this big, beautiful spending bill, and of course, this is what caused the rift with Elon. Where they all of a sudden, Elon is in there cutting everything, trying to get support for like basically slashing government, all this waste. And then they have this rift because Elon is against the big, beautiful spending bill and Trump is obviously for it. And it escalates so much that Elon literally on X is saying that the Epstein files like reveal that, Trump is in the Epstein files. And yes, I am going to talk about the Epstein files here in a minute because that also happened around this time. And so then it just after that, though, after the big, beautiful spending bill, Trump, in my mind, just reverted back to, I'm not saying that's the reason. I'm just saying at that time, around April, May is how I remember it of 2025. So just a few months ago, that's when Trump just reverted back to 1.0, Trump 1.0. And everything he is doing isn't really that different than what he was doing, in the first administration, which, okay, by the way, for all the midwits out there, all the brain dead people who want to say, well, Kamala would be worse. Yeah, I know, but Kamala's not the president. No, only an idiot would vote for Kamala. We all know that. Are we not allowed to say anything critical about the guy, Trump, because Kamala would be worse? Everybody knows that. So anybody who wanted to put that in the comments, just keep it to yourself because it's an idiotic comment. We're talking about Trump here. We're not talking about, the drunk, brain dead Californian girl. So since then, we've just had, just a really unenthusiastic, presidency, a very very like kind of flailing about. It's like Trump, one of Trump's great gifts is he commands the room. By that, I mean, he directs like the conversation and it goes where he wants it to go. But now I feel like for the past few months, he's just flailing about. He's trying this, trying that, hoping for this will happen, hoping that happen. I notice he doesn't go on podcasts anymore. That was a major part of his campaign trail, was going on podcasts, really talking about stuff with Joe Rogan and people like that, Theo Vaughn, others. He doesn't go on those anymore. Instead, he goes on the legacy media. He loves Fox News. I remember that was something he mentioned a few months ago. I think I might have brought him in the podcast. I can't remember. About something he saw on Fox News. It's like, dude, come on. Nobody's watching Fox News anymore. And like, I know I'm an older guy. I'm not a boomer, but I'm Gen X. And I don't watch Fox News. I mean, why did you all of a sudden abandon the people who got you here? It wasn't Fox News that got you elected president. It was the podcasts and the people who watch those podcasts. That's who got you elected. And you just basically threw them aside after the election. And so that's one thing. And then the tariff thing. Now, I've never been supportive of the tariffs. I just economically, I think tariffs are a bad idea because they're just a tax. However, I do acknowledge that there can be benefits to tariffs beyond the economic, like as far as negotiations with other countries and things like that. I'm not like ideologically tariffs are the worst thing ever. But the fact is like, they're taxes. That's what they are. They're taxes on us. We pay more. In fact, here's a good example. My wife bought something from another country. I think it was in Europe or something like that. And it was shipped to her. And all of a sudden she got a bill for $20 from FedEx. She's like, I already paid for shipping. And we found it's a tariff that they just added on to it. And so it's like, okay, my wife now has to pay $20 more for something. I think the total product was like $60 or something like that because of a tariff. And tariffs, they're taxes on us. Now, what Trump is trumpeting is the fact that, it's all this extra revenue. All this extra revenue. And here's the reality. And now he's saying, we're going to send $2,000 stimulus checks. He didn't call them stimulus checks, but he's going to send $2,000 stimulus checks to people under a certain income because due to all this revenue from the tariffs. Now, let me break this down to you for a second. The tariffs are projected to bring in about $200 billion this year, $200 to $300 billion. We'll just give it, let's just say the upper range, $300 billion. Now, note, tariffs before this year were already going to bring in like $100 billion. So it's not like that's all new. But let's just say $300 billion are brought in by these tariffs that Trump put in, which is way more than reality, but we'll just kind of give the benefit of the doubt. What is the budget deficit going to be this year? Let's have a little primer here for those who might not always remember these different terms because they're thrown around so much people forget them because they have big numbers. The deficit is how much the government spends each year over how much it brings in. The debt is how much they have spent over how much they have brought in a lifetime. That's what's built up. The deficit this year is projected to be about $1.8 trillion. $1.8 trillion with a TR. The debt is about $38 trillion. So if the deficit is $1.8 trillion, that means they spent $1.8 trillion more than they brought in this year. More than their revenue. Remember, their revenue is money from us. They're taking from us. And tariffs bring in an additional $300 billion, we'll say. How does that all of a sudden mean there's money left over to send $2,000 checks to people? It makes no sense. Because if you put that $300 billion in tariffs revenue into cutting down the deficit, what you've done is you've just cut the deficit to $1.5 trillion, which means the debt will still grow by $1.5 trillion. It'll go from $38 to $39.5 trillion. So even if you apply all the tariff money revenues to paying off the deficit, it barely dents the deficit. It increases. We're still increasing the debt. And where are you getting this $2,000 per person from the tariff revenue? Like it's like leftover money, extra money. We know exactly what it is. It's buying voters off. It's trying to make them happy. People are not happy. He knows his base is not happy. He knows Americans are not happy with the economy. The economy is not turned around like he promised. Now, I'm one who actually doesn't think the president should have a ton to do with the economy and turning it around overnight. I'm not blaming him for this, by the way, for the economy. It was not in good shape under Biden. It wasn't in good shape since COVID. I mean, let's be honest, because of stuff Trump did, but definitely because of stuff Biden did. So I'm not blaming Trump for today's economy. Don't get me wrong. But he knows people are going to blame him for it. So he's throwing them $2,000 to get him to shut up, hopefully. It's just ridiculous. It's economically awful. It's economically just dumb. And all it does is it's just printing more money, because that's what you have to do if you have less revenue than you do how much you're spending. You have to go into debt. And where's that money come from that you spend? You're just printing it. And just to be clear, I've written about this. My book, Moral Money, The Case for Bitcoin. The whole first part of this book is about our monetary system and how broken it is, about printing money, how it devalues our currency, how it our spending power, how it harms the middle class, how it harms the poor. And sending $2,000. I know people don't understand this, but they need to read my book, Moral Money. You're harming the poor and the middle class by sending them $2,000. Everybody gets excited, like, oh, good, I got $2,000. But what you've done is you've just increased prices. And so this is just like unbelievably dumb. Okay. Then you have the 50-year mortgage. I just saw before I got on that already, like, people at the White House are furious that they were tricked into supporting this 50-year mortgage idea because there's been such a backlash against it. Of course, there's been a backlash because the 50-year mortgage is stupid. The idea was they want to normalize 50-year mortgages so that the right now the normal mortgage is 30 years. That's the standard mortgage. Most people, most Americans, especially their first mortgage, they get a 30-year mortgage. Instead, what they want to do is Trump's trying to say, his people are saying, okay, let's make 50-year mortgages the normal. This is so dumb. Now, I'm not saying, like, okay, first of all, I do understand the argument for a 50-year mortgage and including a 30-year mortgage in the sense of we have this money that's going down in value. It's inflating, and so therefore the value of a dollar goes down. And so if you loan it, if you borrow now, and then you can spend it, on hard assets like Bitcoin or like on real estate, something like that, and you actually will financially could be well off, better off. I understand that argument. The trouble is, we're talking about the average American, what they're doing with a 50-year mortgage. A 50-year mortgage, all it will do is will raise the price of housing. In fact, the reason housing has gone up, there's many reasons housing is so expensive now. Everybody knows their story about their grandfather or their father who was able to buy a house on a single income and he paid $30,000 for it, or something like that. The reason it's gone up so much is a couple reasons. One is because of inflation, because we're printing money, and so everything is going up in price. But another reason is these long-term mortgages that are backed by the federal government. It's the same reason college costs have gone up so ridiculously. I mean, college, everybody just thinks, oh, yeah, college is so expensive now. Why does it cost $100,000 a year to go to some colleges? Because the federal government got involved and really pushed everybody to get loans. That drives up the cost. Let me just give an example. I gave this on X yesterday, but let me give it here. If you get a $300,000 mortgage, let's say you get pre-approved for a $300,000 mortgage. That means what? It means you can pay up to $300,000 for a house. When you're shopping for a house, you're looking for any house $300,000 or less. And you're approved on that based upon your primarily, there is more to this, but let's keep it simple, primarily based upon your income in comparison to what the monthly payment would be. And usually what they do is they have a formula that says, okay, if your monthly payment goes over about 35-40% of your monthly income, then you don't qualify. So what they do is they say, okay, let's say on a $300,000 mortgage, your monthly payment's $1,000 a month. I'm making up these numbers. If you have an income of $3,000 a month, that's a third. Okay, you're approved. Well, now let's say the 50-year mortgage comes into being. What that does is it drops the monthly payments because they're spread out over time. Now a $1,000 monthly payment over 50 years might allow you to afford a $500,000 house. These numbers are made up, people. Don't get your calculators out. But they're basically just, they get the point across. Now you can look for a $500,000 house with the same monthly payment. But what you're doing is everybody has these loans available to them now. So everybody can bid more for a house. Before, if the house was $300,000, you could make an offer on it. But if it was $320,000, you couldn't make an offer on it. Now with a $500,000 mortgage, you can make an offer on $320,000. You can bump all the way up to $500,000. And so what happens in very short order, that $300,000 house, guess how much it cost? $500,000. So all that's changed for the average American who's not doing financial trickery or anything like that. The average American, what happens is he's still paying $1,000 a month, yet now he's paying it for 50 years instead of 30 years. And he's getting the exact same house for that. That's what the end result will be of normalizing 50-year mortgages. And I was very happy to see so many people, conservatives particularly, who were attacking this idea, saying how dumb it was. And so that is a real, that was just another bad idea. And it's like, it's unbelievable that Trump thinks this is so obviously not trying to solve a problem. This is such a politician solution. It's like, okay, we can trick the people to thinking, the young people, oh yeah, now your monthly payments can be less. You can afford more house. You can afford a house maybe you couldn't afford before. All you're doing is you're kicking the can down the road. You're just making it worse for the next generation. And you're making it bad for the young generation now as well. So just a dumb idea. And then we had a week ago, I have a lot of things I could bring up. I'll just bring a few of them about Trump the past few months. We had the discounted fat drugs. Trump in the Oval Office trumpets this idea of like, okay, we're going to have discounts. He negotiated discounts for the Ozempic, or however you pronounce it, drug, the fat drug, which we have no idea what the long-term consequences is. I would put all my money down, all my Bitcoin down on the prediction that one day we're going to find out these drugs are not good for you. They're not good for you. We can't have long-term studies yet because they haven't been around long enough for that. But I'm sorry, but taking a pill that changes your metabolism, changes your way your body operates so radically is not good for you. It's just not good for you. There's just no way you can convince me otherwise. I don't need a medical study to know that. I just need to have a brain to know that. Like I said, we might not know what they are until later. In fact, it was kind of funny at the press conference or in the Oval Office. Trump even said, like, I don't think there's any side effects of this, or are they? I mean, people say there aren't. And like, he even knew that he better not say there are none, because one day there will be, and he'll get sued if he says there's none. But the point is, this is the opposite of Maha. Make America healthy again. I'm very much on board with that idea. My wife even has a t-shirt that says, Make America Healthy Again, that I bought for. I mean, RFK, he was railing on these drugs before the election because they're not making us healthy again. Taking a drug to take off fat is not getting healthy. You need to look at the root causes of obesity. The food we eat, why is it making us so obese? Why is so much food addictive and so unhealthy for us? Why don't we exercise? All these things, but we don't look at, we're just give them a drug. And now we're going to discount. We're going to cover it by Medicare and Medicaid. We're going to have a website that sells the drugs, basically, that the government runs. It's the opposite of Maha. It's a total broken promise. And then, of course, we have immigration. We started off strong. ICE was kicking down doors, kicking people out. That's what we voted for. Now, I mean, we can have some discussion about exactly which immigrants we should kick out. Like, I personally do think the focus should have been 100% on kicking out criminals, like beyond being here illegally, like who had committed other crimes in this country. I always felt like that should be, mostly because I just think that's what is palatable to the normies. They're gonna totally be behind that. I mean, it started with that, but now it's just like we've lost all energy for that. Just this week, Trump was on Fox News, of course, because it's the only place he goes anymore. And he was trumpeting the fact that there are 600,000 Chinese students, coming here for college educations, and how that's a good thing. How that's somehow a good thing. And in fact, he said, if we kick them out, then a lot of these colleges go out of business. I'm like, yeah, that's a good thing for colleges to go out of business. Remember, it's the university system that is the number one, like, brainwasher and indoctrination of our young people to be against American values. How do you think these kids end up being so wackadoodle? So many of them are because they go to college like just normal, and they come out, with blue hair and like, now they're trans or whatever, and they're promoting, they're voting for Mondami in New York. I would love it if tons of colleges went out of business. I think that would be a great thing. And it'd be the free market actually speaking, that we don't need these colleges that are around. But yet Trump's like, oh, we have to keep these colleges in business for some reason. And so we need to have all these foreign, nationals in our country and studying, many of whom, I mean, the Chinese students, they're going to study here, learn from our experts, and then go back to China and compete against us. I'm not a big, like, China's the big boogeyman, but at the same time, I don't act like they're an ally either. I don't think it makes sense for us to, be training them. Let them have their own schools. So, I mean, talk about against America first. And of course, the whole Trump administration very much promote the H-1B visas, which is, all this stuff. I mean, Trump was voted to kick the illegal immigrants out and to kick and to really stop, or at least slow down radically, immigration. I mean, it goes back to immigration touches a lot of things, because if a lot of immigrants are not coming in, and I just want to say real quick, I do give credit to Trump that he has slowed down the immigration coming here a lot. And I don't want to act like he hasn't done that, but it's not what the promises were. If you deport a lot of these immigrants, housing prices will actually go down because there'll be less people to buy houses. And that's going to make housing prices go down. So all these things are related to each other. And then, of course, I mean, I've been going on for a while now, and I still got a few more things to talk about with Trump, how disappointing he is. Then, of course, it's his attacking Thomas Massie and Rand Paul while he's cozying up and praising people like Randy Fine and Lindsey Graham. Now, I'm not saying you have to be I'm not saying you have to be a Tom Massie or Rand Paul fan. I am a fan of both of them. I'm not saying you have to be a fan of them, but you have to acknowledge that if Trump was doing what he promised to do during the election, these guys are allies. People like Rand Paul and Thomas Massie are allies. Whereas people like Randy Fine, that's that congressman, the heavily, morbidly obese congressman from Florida, and Lindsey Graham, who's never heard of a conflict or war he didn't want to support from a distance, from behind a desk. There's not a single conflict he doesn't want our boys and girls dying in. I mean, except for the boys in his office. And it's like unbelievable that these are the two people like Randy Fine and Lindsey Graham that Trump is best buddies with and supports and all that. Whereas he attacks and like he's supporting a $20 million PAC founded by that Adelson lady, I can't remember her name, from Israel, against Thomas Massie. I mean, the problem with Thomas Massie and Rand Paul in Trump's eyes is they're principled. They won't go along with everything. So when Trump has shifted, as he has since April-ish or May, he has shifted. They haven't shifted. Again, I'm not saying you have to support everything they support or be completely on board with them. But the fact is it's Trump who's changed, not them. They're the same people they were beforehand that they are now. And then we have, of course, this is the big one in my mind. I don't think this is by far the big one. In fact, I would say this is the worst thing Donald Trump has done as a president in either term, as far as just like how he's treated his followers, stuff like that. And that's the Epstein case. When he came out, we were promised the Epstein list will be revealed. Now, Trump was never like, huge on that during the campaign, but he did indicate that, yes, they would release information about the Epstein case. We had in February the Epstein binders, part 1, with those, influencers who were duped into going there looking like fools by saying, it's all coming out. Pam Bondi's like, it's on my desk. Then all of a sudden, nope, you're not getting anything. And in fact, not only that, Trump said the whole thing is a Democrat hoax. Only idiots believe there's something there. I'm sorry. That, in my mind, is you've crossed a line. You've crossed a major line. We're talking about pedophiles at the highest levels of government and industry and finance, things like that, being allowed to walk free and do whatever they want. And now we're saying, and we all know this has happened. We all know that. I mean, Epstein was in jail, for goodness sake. Do you think he was in jail on accident? We all know there's people implicated in this, pedophiles. And yet Trump then tries to say it's a hoax. I know Trump has this way of like bending reality to his supporters, that he can just say something that is obviously counterfactual and his supporters will just say, okay, I guess it must be true. But I found that this one, calling the Epstein files a Democrat hoax, I saw very, very few Trump supporters who backed him on that. And it really was a complete just rejection of his base, because he was voted in both 2016 and in 2024 under, really, there was two major campaign promises. One was the immigration reform, getting rid of the illegals and all the immigrants. And two was drain the swamp. Is there anything more swampy than the Epstein case? No. And yet now we're supposed to act like it's a hoax. Like there's nothing there. It was all just made up. It's obvious to anybody with half a brain cell that they're covering something up. And Trump is covering something up. Now, I'm not somebody who's going to jump to say, well, Trump was in there and there's evidence that he was, diddling some kid or something like that. I'm not saying that. I am saying, though, something in that case Trump saw and didn't want to get the light of day. whether it hurt him, hurt a family member, if he felt like it's going to make it's like, here's one possibility. This is like probably the best interpretation. It's possible. I think it's very likely. It's almost guaranteed. It's guaranteed Trump is in the files in the sense that he knew Epstein and he hung out with him at times. Being in the files does not make you evil. Epstein hobnobbed with a lot of rich people. It didn't mean that rich people necessarily went on his plane and went to Epstein Island. But Trump might have thought, just being in the files is enough that really it's going to harm my presidency, even though I've done nothing wrong. That would harm it. And so he wanted to cover up. I mean, that's the best interpretation. The worst interpretation, of course, is that he or somebody very close to him did something terrible. And so, like, this is, I mean, I really feel like it's unforgivable what he did with the Epstein files. And this is right around this time. So all this stuff was happening around this time of April, May, things like that, with Elon saying that Trump's in the Epstein files, stuff like that. And where Trump all of a sudden starts just governing differently. He just changed his tune on a dime, and we can't pretend he didn't. And so when I ask what has happened, I mean, let me pull up that post again I made on X. It's like, it's like Trump 2.0 transferred into Trump 1.0 overnight. What happened? And I will say here, I'm not going to say I know what happened, because I don't think any of us know for sure. However, it is very hard not to at least turn an eye or two to a certain country on the other side of the planet that is well known and has well-known supporters in America, i.e. Israel. The Epstein case is obviously connected to Israel in some ways. I mean, I think there's some debate about how much it is. I mean, I heard, Daryl Cooper, I think it was, on Tucker's show a while back talking about some of this. And he was very good about like not trying to jump to conclusions that hadn't been proven, but there's clearly a connection there. Obviously, this is one of the problems of what Trump did. Trump, when he ran both times, he ran on, we're not going to get involved with these foreign wars. Now, I will say Trump, even when he was campaigning, never, threw Israel under the bus or anything like that. We knew he'd be supportive of Israel, but he's gone far beyond what I think most reasonable people thought he would do. And it's become a thing now where it's dividing the Republican Party. Dividing conservatism is, what is your position on Israel? And obviously, as you know, Randy Fine and Lindsey Graham, they're very pro-Israel. Thomas Massie, he's anti-Israel. I mean, he's actually just anti all foreign aid. He's not anti-Israel specifically. But it's very hard not to say that Israel is connected to the shift. I don't have proof of that. I'm not breaking down like here in this podcast. Okay, here's all my proof of exactly why, be that meme of the guy with all the, the bulletin board with all the connections. But I think you have to be an idiot not to think there's some connection between Trump's shift and Israel. And it's the debate raging now. And it's because, you have people like on one side, you have the Tucker Carlsons, Candace Owens, Dave Smiths, Nick Fuentes. On the other side, you have the Mark Levins, the Ben Shapiros, the Ted Cruzes, the Mike Huckabees, people like that. And there's and what I notice is, I just use the old noticing thing that, people use. What I notice is, like, if you listen to, and I've listened to both sides, I really have. If you listen to a Dave Smith, you listen to a Tucker Carlson, you listen to Candace Owens, and even Nick Fuentes, who I don't listen to too much. And I don't really like Candace either. I don't like her show. I mean, I shouldn't say I don't like Candace. I'm saying I don't like her show. I like Dave Smith's show. I like Tucker Carlson's show. I don't like Candace Owens' show. I don't like Nick Fuentes' show. But all of them, they do give reasons why they oppose aid to Israel. And other than perhaps Fuentes, none of them are like, oh, just the Jews or something like that. It's like, no, these are our reasons. Like Dave Smith will break it down. Tucker Carlson will break it down. When I listen to Ben Shapiro and Mark Levin, all they're doing is saying anti-Semitism is awful. These people are anti-Semites. They're anti-Semites. Oh, did I tell you they're anti-Semites? I mean, it's gotten to ludicrous proportions. Ben Shapiro is a joke. Like, I liked Ben Shapiro for a long time, a lot longer than most conservatives, kind of that I agree with, liked him. And you saw him, like, he would debate people. He would have these reasoned arguments. He'd say, it's not your facts don't care about your feelings, all this stuff. And he's literally become exactly the caricature of what he was against for a number of years. Now, some people say, Eric, you're just an idiot. You should have realized this from the beginning. It was always about Israel. Okay, fine. But I'm just saying is now it's very clear that it never, with at least for now, Ben Shapiro, it's not about, okay, we have these arguments for this. It's just a matter of let's go ahead and it's all for Israel. So I just can't imagine, and I will say it could be beyond Israel. It could be just a generic military industrial complex, which of course is a lot. Israel's involved with that, but it's not only that. And so, like, just the war machine, the war party was like, they didn't like the direction Trump was going. And so they had something on him. And I have a hard time believing they have something on because why hasn't it been pulled out before this? But I don't know how these people work. So, maybe. I think actually, I was listening to Candace Owens on Dave Smith. Listen to Candace Owens' show really, and like I said, I don't like her style. I shouldn't be. I'm not trying to be mean about Candace Owens. I just don't like her style. I don't like most of the topics she talks about. I think that's probably more than anything. But I was listening to her on Dave Smith, and I thought she had a line that I thought was great. I don't have to be a fan of her to think it's great, and that is, Trump has joined the Never Trumpers. Trump has joined the Never Trumpers, and it's true. I mean, it's funny because I was a Never Trumper. And I stopped being a Never Trumper. But somebody like Ben Shapiro is a Never Trumper for a very different reason than I was. And he's at his heart still a Never Trumper. Because at his heart, the reason he was Never Trump is because Trump might not support Israel as much as he wanted to, might not support the war party as much as Ben Shapiro wanted him to. And now that, and so therefore, anybody who is going to maybe push Trump away from support of Israel or away from support of the war party, Shapiro is going to just attack. But yet what's happened is Trump is now cozied up to the Never Trumpers, the Ben Shapiros of the world. And it really is sad. And I will say, I have been very cynical for many years, for a long, long time, about politics. I mean, since the 1990s, more longer than some of the people listening to this have been alive. I've been cynical about politics. And I will say my cynicism lifted a little bit last election because I thought, wow, I think because of what's happened, I think Trump might actually make a difference. He might govern differently. And I was like, okay, this is going to be different. But now it looks like it's just the same as always. My reason for cynicism has not really left me. And if somebody can tell me how I'm wrong, I'll listen to it. I don't want to be cynical about politics, but I am. And like, I like JD Vance. I know there are a lot of people don't like JD Vance for reasons. I think some of them are just because he has an Indian wife and, the whole Peter Thiel connection, things like that. I like JD Vance. I have for a very long time. I loved his book. I mean, part of it, maybe he swayed me because his book, Hillbilly Elegy, reminds me a lot where my fathers grew up. And, it's the same time frame as Vance's grandparents. And I have a connection there, I admit. And I like the way he deals with the media and how he deals with people. And I just like his personality. But let's be honest. If Donald Trump can't stand up to these people, whoever these people are, I'm not even saying I know who they are. If he can't stand up to them, do you really think JD Vance can? I don't. I mean, I like JD Vance better than Donald Trump as a person and all that. But I also recognize Donald Trump is the alpha dog and he can't get pushed around. He get pushed around less than JD Vance. And yet he's getting pushed around, I think. And so it's like if Donald Trump's getting pushed around, JD Vance is too. And so I really just it makes me very cynical going into 2026, but also 2028, just of like what are we really doing here? So okay, I think I'm gonna wrap it up there. Let me go to the live chat here and see what people are saying. I saw some good chat, but we put the chat on the on the screen for people to read, which I like doing that. Okay, LKJ Bennett says he's disappointed because he runs on instincts, not principles. That is very true. He definitely does. Without a real consistent economic framework like Austrian economics, there was never a strong reason to expect better. I know. People can call me naive for getting, losing my cynicism last election. I will take that criticism, and own it. But I know he's always been instincts. But I really thought that there would be people around him who were principled, who would steer him the right direction. But it looks like he's listening to the same bad voices he was listening to in his first presidency. August TV 123 says houses would get cheaper if Trump would deport the folks he say deport. Wages rise too. Yeah, I mean, I said that too. You're right, absolutely right. If we have less people here, less immigrants, we're going to have less. The housing prices are going to go down. A female Casey Royals fan from Nebraska says, I'll admit it was actually Ben Shapiro as the reason I decided to cancel my Daily Wire Plus. I like Matt Walsh and Michael Knowles. I think if they left and became independent, Daily Wire would crash. I didn't really address this on my on the podcast. I like Matt Walsh a lot. I'm friends with him. I like Michael Knowles. I'm not friends with him, but I would be. I imagine if I knew him. I like his show. I like Matt Walsh too. You said Matt Walsh. I'm sorry. I'm not friends with Matt Walsh. Sorry, Matt Fradd. I'm friends with Matt Fradd. I like him a lot. I like Michael Knowles. I'm not friends with him, don't know him, but I like him a lot. I like Matt Walsh. I'm not friends with him either, but I like some. I don't like him as much as Michael Knowles, but I like him too. I've never been against any of those guys. And so I'm not like this anti-Daily Wire guy and, it's the worst. But I would not subscribe to it. And Ben Shapiro is a big reason why. I mean, the main reason why. I don't subscribe to a lot of those channels anyway, but yeah, I mean, Ben Shapiro, he's been bad for a long time with this stuff. And I admit, I wasn't really seeing it as clearly, but yeah, I think that's very, I don't blame you for dropping the Daily Wire. So, I will not pronounce this name correctly, but I wish I could. Sayamara Vesper says, and I apologize for not pronouncing it correctly. It sounds like a beautiful name if I could pronounce it. Trump needs to find his faith. Yeah, amen. I mean, that was my hope. He was shot, remember, on the 13th of July, Our Lady of Fatima Day, near Our Lady of Fatima Church. He was saved miraculously. And I was praying that really would bring him to his faith. And it was kind of like, I thought, in fact, that was one reason I was enthusiastic, was like, if he was able to stand up to an assassination attempt, who's really going to tell him what to do when he's president? Who's really going to be able to control him? I mean, he's already been shot at. They tried to shut down him through the legal system. All that failed. He's basically invincible. So nobody can control him. Yet, I'm sorry, my conclusion is, based upon the evidence the public evidence, I don't have any internal evidence, anything like that. The public evidence I see is that he is controlled. That Donald Trump is controlled. That people are calling the shots behind the scenes on some level. I'm not saying on everything. I think somebody like Biden was more controlled by worse people, but that Donald Trump himself is not really in charge. He's not able to do, just whatever he wants to do. He's not listening to the right voices. Because I think the first couple months of the Donald Trump presidency this year was him kind of doing his thing. And then whatever reason, he was told, you got to stop that. You got to go back to being our puppet, doing what we say. So I hope I'm wrong. And all of a sudden he's going to go on a run here where he does all these great things. And I'll look back in this video and be like, whoa, I really jumped the gun on that. Unfortunately, I don't think that's going to happen. So, okay, everybody. Well, pray for President Trump, obviously. Pray for JD Vance. Pray for our country, that we might be able to withstand just some terrible leaders who are doing everything they can to destroy our country. And pray that they would either convert or be sent out of office. So, okay, everybody, until next time, God love you.